I want to talk about some of the crazy things I've been reading about. Today, I got my video flagged by Fact Check, and they're saying that they're gonna push my comments down the algorithm so that not many people are gonna be exposed by them anymore. I posted a video of the president of Pfizer saying that this vaccine is not safe. The vice president of Pfizer saying that this vaccine is not safe. I'm not kidding you. And they're gonna fact check that like the fact checkers are the ones that with the medical degrees and stuff. I want to tell you something else too. Professor Bridle from the University of Guelph in Canada, his research team was given $230,000 from the government to study COVID, and he's going around as a whistleblower, risking his reputation and his career trying to keep you safe. This vaccine is not safe. Not only is it not safe, but it isn't doing what a vaccine is supposed to do. It's supposed to make it so you're immune to the virus. Nobody is vaccinated is immune to this virus. It's almost like they put this spike protein in you without even knowing what the long-term effects of it is. And they do know the long-term effects. They've known for years. Not Professor Bridle, the vice president of Pfizer literally said they have known that spike proteins cause blood clots and bleeding for years. They've known that they do this. So they put all these spike proteins in your body, and most people are alright. But if you die within 14 days of getting this vaccine, it doesn't count as a death from the vaccine because they say this vaccine isn't effective for at least 14 days after taking it. So, what does that mean? That means that you forfeit your life insurance. They're going to I've seen this Mythbusters, 3 fact-checking Mythbusters little picture on Facebook today. It said, nobody knows what's in this vaccine. False. Of course somebody knows what's in this vaccine. That first fact-checking Mythbuster is supposed to set the stage so that they can say the next 2 points are completely ridiculous as well. Because they're pushing, like I said, any real evidence that anyone is sending is being pushed down the algorithm while people with the biased, non-medical background get their little Facebook memes pushed up to the top of their feed where they go, why isn't everybody getting vaccinated? They're essentially bullying you to get vaccinated. And they literally will. If anyone says that they're not getting vaccinated, those posts will be pushed to the top of the feed where they will get radicals harassing them and berating them. And whenever I send any real evidence to people, they just call me stupid because they just do not know how to respond to an actual scientist's article and stuff. Okay, so Pfizer has been sued in 2009 for $2.3 billion for pushing medication that is not approved by the FDA and pushing medication that is not approved at doses by the FDA. And, I'm saying third one, pushing medication for uses that were not approved by the FDA. So maybe it was approved for something else, but then they started using it for something else. You know what I'm saying? So Pfizer's pushing drugs, all right? So the second fact check that they're going to tell you on this thing is, nobody has died from this virus. Nobody has died from this vaccine. Are you kidding me? They're trying to dismiss all of the reports on VAERS reporting system as just not factual or just not a sustainable source of information because they've set up the vaccine reporting system to be in such a way that it's not credible source of information. So where are you supposed to get your information? They're literally making it almost impossible to find out how dangerous this vaccine is. And the third check is they're telling us that this vaccine wasn't rushed. Yeah, it was. It was not approved by the FDA until August 23rd. And before then, they had an emergency release since December. So everybody who had this vaccine between December and August were not approved by the FDA. It was just an emergency release because they need this vaccine to blah, 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 blah. Somebody pushed some papers and made this thing go through faster. I'm not kidding you, okay? And I don't want to hear you tell me that this vaccine is safe. I have multiple people on my friends list who have life-threatening illnesses from the vaccine. Did I mention that if you get vaccinated, you void your life insurance? Yeah, that's right. If you get vaccinated, you just void your life insurance. And if you die within 14 days of getting the vaccine, they just tell you, oh, it wasn't the vaccine because it is not effective for 14 days. Kind of like how they tell you that when you inject the RNA virus into your arm, it just stays in your muscle tissue. It doesn't. It goes everywhere, okay? It goes through your whole body just like anything else you would if you injected it into your arm, all right? It doesn't stay in your muscle tissue. They're lying to you. So why am I saying all this weird conspiracy stuff? Well, they like to throw dirt in your eyes to make it just look like any actual theory, not just a conspiracy, but any actual theory just couldn't possibly be true because it's just so ridiculous. Every time they tell you, say for example, I'm gluten-free. I break out, you know what I mean? Like I break out when I eat wheat, and I bleed if I eat wheat. And if I try to tell you that I'm gluten-free, well, a lot of people just think like, oh, well, you might as well just start praying to aliens and aligning your chakras because, like, there's nothing you could do for gluten intolerance. There's no pill, there's no cure for that. It's just nothing you can do. Because I honestly think it's glyphosate. I think it's the glyphosate, which is Roundup, a pesticide they've been spraying on vegetables since 2016 when Bayer Pharmaceutical bought Monsanto in 2012. It didn't take a few years before they started pushing the GMOs everywhere. And the GMO wheat isn't dangerous. It's the fact that it's genetically modified not to react to Roundup. Don't you think Roundup would react to you? Because you're not genetically modified, are you? So that's what I'm trying to say is glyphosate is actually, a lot of people are allergic to Roundup, believe it or not. It is a pretty bad pesticide. But I only react to wheat because I believe they spray glyphosate on wheat right before harvest so it all dries up. Which explains if I have celiac disease or I'm gluten intolerant, sometimes I react to other things. Like I can take a bite of an apple and just get a huge blister in my mouth. And I'm thinking like, what the hell? It's gotta be pesticides, alright? So I'm not gonna go on about my kooky diagnosis because it's pretty much impossible to get yourself diagnosed with celiac disease. The testing is to test for muscle building compounds in your bloodstream. So if you have muscle building compounds in your bloodstream, it means your intestines are super damaged and they're trying to fix themselves. But I don't know. I'm rambling about stuff that's not about the vaccine. I'm trying to say why the whole reason they're making this vaccine mandatory is to strip your damn rights. They want you to not only carry a passport everywhere, but they want you to have your identity attached to it as well. And when your social credit is attached to your identity like that, they can easily just, link your money to that too. So now, eventually, I'm sure they want us all to sit in a commune and just work all our days for some Bitcoin so we can buy our Netflix at the end of the day for pay-per-view. I'm sure that's what the agenda is really about. Gonna sell us some video games. Just stay inside all day, guys. They just want to sell you some video games. Anyway, so where I was going about the passport. The passport is to make you guys second-class citizens, so that anybody who is not vaccinated is now socially scrutinized and basically chased off all of social events and culture. You're not one of us. You're not vaccinated, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like a herd mentality they want you to have. So, people who have no medical experience whatsoever are harassing people who are not vaccinated. Why? Why is that? This is so against freedom of speech, right? Well, there was another thing I was going to say. It's vaccine passport. I'd have to go back and listen to myself again. Anyway, so, the vaccine passport is really not about, yes, people who are vaccinated still catch and spread this virus. They still catch and spread the virus and they get sick. They still get sick and they still catch and spread it. So it's a vaccine that doesn't even work what it's intended to do. And, sure, they can make the numbers look like that most people in the hospital are unvaccinated. because they've already made it look like almost everybody who's died that year has died of COVID, because doctors get an incentive for every person who's been written off as death of COVID. I know people personally who have, like my ex-boyfriend, his dad, or his grandpa was dying of cancer for 6 years, and he finally died. Nobody had COVID around him, but they wrote it off as possible death of COVID. Got another friend on my Facebook who says her aunt died instantly in a car accident. They wrote it off as possible death of COVID. So the COVID death numbers are inaccurate, all right? Probably just as inaccurate as VAERS, because the medical industry was making money. Doctors got money every time they wrote down COVID. They got $36,000 for every patient that was put on a ventilator, even if they didn't need it, because ventilators are pretty dangerous, invasive, and they can kill people as well. Anyway, vaccine passport. Why don't we have an antibody passport? Because the people with antibodies are ones that have already fought off the disease. Maybe they don't fight off the Delta variant or something like that. Maybe they don't fight off different variants. But they're still immune for 4 to 8 years for the virus that they had. You can catch COVID again, they says. Sure you can. So that means antibodies are not valid enough to, people with antibodies are safer to be around than people who are vaccinated. But they're tricking you. They're tricking you to think that only people who are vaccinated are safe to be around. Ridiculous, I'll tell you that. Today on Facebook, I had one of my posts flagged as misinformation. I was posting a video of the vice president of Pfizer saying that this vaccine isn't safe. And they got flagged, fact-checked. They got flagged for fact-check for not being misinformation. And I thought it was pretty entertaining because in the fact-check itself, it was mentioning Professor Bridle from the University of Guelph and trying to debunk it on some biased website of some science-based website I've never heard of before. But I think that's entertaining because every time you see anybody say, "Oh, Professor Bridle just doesn't conform to the mainstream media's opinions," they won't actually cite any doctor or scientist underneath that claim. It's just like, everybody point and laugh at this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about, with no citations on whether or not he is telling the truth or not.